classic want to get your advice situation here. And this one is a little different, I think. When I said that I had the voice of that Notebook ML podcast intro guy, something's a little different this episode. Anyways, I'm distracting myself with more thoughts about that. But so here's I've got a 14-year-old, and what the 14-year-old has figured out is that after I go to bed and my wife goes to bed, he can sneak down and watch the TV. And the thing is, what with the internet TVs we have nowadays, were they ever called that? Internet TVs? We don't even think of that nowadays. But you can watch YouTube on there, which is all he wants to do, right? And so he'll just sit there and watch YouTube on this giant TV. I should really just stop complaining about it because it's boring. It's all the complaints you would have. So what I try to do, if I remember, is I take the remote controls and I hide them. Now, this is something I think I learned from Matt Ray by extension. I remember sometime over the years, I learned that he and his wife have a safe that they put the electronic devices in.
No, we just used a high shelf.
Okay, well, sure, high shelf. That's safe too. But some sort of purposeful keeping of them from the kids, not just don't use those devices. So usually I hide the remotes, and you know how it goes. It's a bit of a Cote and Cormac or a cat and mouse game where I'm trying to, I got to hide them because he looks for them. Now, oftentimes I wonder, who's the parent here? But never mind that. But
he's educating you.
That's right. So I've hidden the remotes in all sorts of obvious places, all sorts of hidden places. But Saturday night, I hid them, and I haven't been able to find them since.
Awesome.
I've searched around the house. I've looked, quote unquote, everywhere 3 to 4 times. I made the flaw of also asking Cormac to look everywhere. So now I think he knows all the potential hiding spots, right? Like he's looked everywhere. He's highly motivated. And I still haven't found them. So
why'd you just put them in your room?
This is a great question. That's what I usually do, and it usually works. But my question is not so much help me find the remotes, but I want to try a different.
Yeah, good luck.
I want to find a different approach. Is where would you hide things from your kids in your house? Like, and maybe this will inspire me to think about where I put them.
Well, I mean, the easiest thing is when you go to bed at night, put them in your nightstand.
Right. I've looked there a few times.
Oh, you mean this is for looking? I thought this was for hiding.
No. I wanted to know, like, where, in your house, let's say you're trying to come up with some interesting, inventive way. You're like, the kids are going to look for this, or I'm going on a trip and I don't want people to find this thing. Wow. where would you hide it? Because again, I'm looking for inspiration of where I might look. And the
bottom of a drawer.
Bottom of a drawer.
Yeah, or attic. I mean, to me, I would say just stuff that's just a pain to get to. So we have a lot of stuff in the attic.
No.
Hide something far away in the attic if you want. You could do it obviously a safe and just somewhere where it's well known, but you just sort of protected it with some other way of doing it.
Right. So I think the first one, we might call it security through laziness.
Yeah,
right? Like
that's my route.
People may know that it's in the far corner of the attic, but the people would be like, oof.
But that's also a hassle for you to go put it there.
That's true.
I mean, it's that's why
I think there's several meta levels of discussion here. Like one on the remote thing. Like I think, because my son is exactly the same age. So I feel like I'm scared to say this out loud if it comes to the blowback, but I will. But I think, to me, it's like, don't do a lot of these restrictions at this point, right? It's more depending on the grade and the country, it's a little different, but it's sort of like, hey, there's certain responsibilities and expectations are that, got to get up to go to school on time. You got to do well in school. You got to be doing your stuff, right? And if you're doing your stuff, you're going to have a certain amount of freedom. Only when the expectations are not going to be met will we start to ratchet down these things. Because it's like, well, you just at some point you kind of they have to get used to some of these temptations, right? Like, and going to bed on time, or like, hey, if you stay up late, you got to get up early, right? You just got to have to live with it. So I don't know. That's sort of like, you can debate, is that right or wrong? But that's sort of like, that's like step one, I guess. And then step two is sort of like, okay, it is the expectation of like, I'm not going to hide things from you. It's like, maybe you just take them and put them in a well-known place, right? But the expectation is that like, hey, we're all putting this away, like almost like cell phones. Sometimes, maybe Matt, you've done this, like all the electronics are charged in a certain area. The expectation is you leave them alone, right? And you don't touch them. I think there's that. And then it's just like, I don't know, because I do think, and then the hiding obviously gets to the point of it's like, if you have to hide it, it's more like it just becomes work for you and for them. So then you just need to have some type of like restricted. If you feel like you need the restriction, be like, I have a lockbox, I have a safe, I have something that's just, you just can't get into, right? Or just like literally shut off the internet. That's another popular one. It's like, at night the internet just goes off, or like, I reset the passwords. So I think some of those things, but like hiding just becomes, I think, work for you and for them versus like,
as is evident right now.
And then you just have to decide what, I think to your point, it's like what you're kind of getting is like, what level of discouragement do you need? Like literally you physically can't access it, or is it like enough to be like, the expectation is you don't do this, right? Because at some point you're gonna have to like do those things. So that would be my like, and you can debate. I agree. Like, listen, I debate myself. I wonder if I'm doing the right thing all the time. So maybe that's how I do it, but I don't know if it's really working. So
maybe it's the what I need is more of an audit situation, an audit log that's being generated.
Oh, don't be careful.
I don't want to have
14-year-old boys.
I don't want to rely on perimeter firewall protection. I want to more assume that I've got like some auditing thing going on where like, kind of like you're saying, if the remote isn't the right place the next day, then we know that like, we haven't followed the rules. And then also if it's difficult to get up in the morning, we also know that it's sort of, an analogous thing. This doesn't quite fit, but let's say you had a box of 97 candy bars, right? And you're like, you can't eat candy bars at midnight. It's probably not a good idea. But like every day, you're not going to wake up and count out the candy bars, right? So you need some kind of system where like you don't want to know that there's only like 94. Did I do that math right? If you had but it's sort of like I don't know. I get what you're saying, Brandon, and I like that. The personal responsibility. That's a very, very Dutch way of looking at things. Is you should just be responsible.
Well, I think I find myself, and maybe Matt Ray in a second you can give us, because you've transcended at least with one child. One child is an adult in your area, but like I just think obviously when the kids are super young and small, like you do need to do these things like put it away. There's just no expectation of self-control. Like the remotes go away, or the internet's off, or the candy bars are put like, and when they're really young, it's easy, right? You just put it up real high or something, like someplace they can't get it, right? So, right. But I think in this transitional area, right? I think where we're at, right, is you're in this transitional area between like, rules, like literally prevention, and then personal expectations of just like you doing the right thing. And I don't know. I think it's just a difficult. I think every parent would say it's a difficult time, but Matt, you've navigated this at least once, and you're on your way for 2 more times. What was like your oldest is now out of the house? So how'd it go? What did you do?
I mean, my oldest is out of the house. My second oldest is going on her first overnight plane flight this weekend. So that's pretty much out of the house, staying at an Airbnb. So we'll see how that goes. But I actually thought about this yesterday. Like my youngest, he's the same age as y'all's kids. And, we have, still have, parent controls in Apple. And, he came and asked me for access like 8:30 p.m. last night. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should turn this off. But then I was remembering like his older brother, like would watch, YouTube till 4 a.m., would play video games till 4 a.m., and just be wrecked the next day. So I'm like, this one's the responsible one. I mean, they're all responsible, but I don't know. Like, I think it's going to be each child is different, because you just kind of have to play it by ear. It was nice when I could just put the remote where they can't reach, or put it in a drawer or whatever. And then it just became like technical blockers where internet gets turned off at 9 p.m. except on my laptop. You just live and learn, man.
Yeah. Well, I think Matt, you did hit the right thing there, and I think that it's every kid is different. So like if your kid is, at some point they all kind of grow into it. Like, at what level does your kid kind of grow into the personal responsibility versus like, no, they're just, maybe they're older, they're getting older, but they still it's just too much temptation. And if you're in that case, then I honestly, the internet off is the best thing. Cause then it's just like, you've just taken so many things off the table when you do that. It's just like, it's like,
but of course, they all have phones, right?
Yeah. Well, that's easy enough. Then I guess you're back to taking the phone, but then you're back to the hiding place, and so then we're back to step one. So I don't know.
I think maybe what I am looking for, what other than the remotes that I can't find anymore, is there. I don't know if this is the right, what would you call it, metaphor, but I think there needs to be some sort of Turing test for acceptable behavior that you don't need to police, and that is, if you've done the thing and I can't tell you've done it, then you've done well, like you followed the rules. And so, for example, oftentimes all the lights downstairs are left on, and that's when I know, like, there's been some late night TV watching. But if all the lights were off, maybe I wouldn't actually care. Maybe that's the thing, is I just like, I don't want all the lights on. The classic dad thing, please turn off the lights. And now it's not all the lights, but for some reason, every time it's just the bathroom light that's left on. It's very mysterious. I'm not sure how that happens, but there's something, I think maybe when they give out manuals for kids, and the section under, like, one of the parents is always going to be obsessed with leaving lights on. So just be aware of that. Always an issue.
That's me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of leaving lights on, I think it seems like I almost feel like we're at the apex every week, so we must be climbing the heights of it. But I feel like there's this growing consensus that we need to stop leaving the light on for DevOps, because it just hasn't worked out well.
Good night, DevOps. Go to bed.
There was a good piece written by fellow Australian resident, maybe even Australian, Justin Warren. I sure hope he's Australian and not from New Zealand, but I'm pretty sure he's Australian. He's always talking about, I don't know if you follow his newsletter, Matt Ray, but he's got in-depth coverage about Australian internet-related lawsuits, like, whenever they come up. And so it's really nice to follow. But he's the most recent, where he had a platform engineering is the new DevOps. Kindly enough, he didn't call it dead. It's actually not as over the top as like the stuff you would see from Humanitech and other people. He's doing more just straight analysis of it. But I think it summarizes a lot of this type of thinking I've seen going on. And I was just talking with someone for the interviews podcast yesterday, and I think maybe some of the summary, I'm going to use their wording for it, is that, like, no one really knows or knew what DevOps was or is, and so it's difficult to implement. Whereas we all know, or it's easier to know, what a platform is, and so you can just say, "There's a platform, you run that thing," and that kind of resolves all this confusion about how to do DevOps stuff. But I guess we've definitely talked about this here and there. But is this when you're out there, Matt Ray, just impressing people with security, do they still talk about DevSecOps? Has the light been turned off on that one? Like, what's the story with that?
That's just part of the conversation. Is everything is still shifting left. It doesn't matter if you call it DevOps or not. We're still trying to put things back in the pipeline and out of production. I don't think we actually say DevSecOps that much. At least, in my neck of the woods, it's mostly just shifting left, getting developers involved. Because just like the classic DevOps story, they didn't want to be involved. And now they're pushing malware, or not malware, but vulnerabilities to production, and you got to get involved.
Shift left. Maybe that's what we need to do. Is we need to have a monthly watch on phrases like shift left, DevOps, DevSecOps, pipeline.
Just like some Google trends. Like,
yeah.
Who's Googling for shift left?
Yeah, I saw that phrase DevSecOps a couple of days ago, and I was a little like, whoa, where'd this come from? And then it made me realize I haven't seen that in a long time. Whereas maybe like 2 years ago, I think that was a big phrase people were shooing around. It was a little astonishing.
Well, I do think, though, the whole thing, the platform engineering comes back to, you know, I guess I would almost say DevOps almost falls in that idea of like when people talk about culture, like it's just a very like ill-defined word, can mean lots of things. Lots of people have different opinions. And I think, I think it was Ben Horowitz who said something like, it was like value or virtues versus values. It's like one idea is like, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but it's something that's like sort of like you can have these like overwhelming, like we're obsessed with the customer, for example, right? You can say that it's like maybe that's just like a value, but like you got to tie it to something you're doing, right? And like we do that because like we answer the phone on the first ring, right? For example, or something like that, right? You come up with something that like this is what we do to really, this is what we mean by when we say that. And I think that's the same thing with DevOps. It's like platform engineering can be a way to kind of like codify all of the things, right? It's like, yeah, we use this platform, we follow this way, and it allows us to get these builds out this fast because we're, if you will, trying to codify as much as possible. And now within that can also be like, yes, we have a lot of teamwork and we think about the customer first and we're doing, all the things that like the DevOps culture talk would be, but you just need something to like, to be like, here is the manifestation of what we're doing. Otherwise you can just kind of seep into like a lot of very ill-defined things. And I think that's probably where DevOps is at today because it's just a wide-ranging topic. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I think you're totally on to that. I think DevOps became very hand wavy, or it is very hand wavy, but it was just a recognition of all the problems in cloud native and regular infrastructure and applications running. And sysadmin saying like, look, we need to get some processes around this and some human behavior as well as some technical behavior. And then you had Google who showed up with their SRE handbook and they're like, boom, done. We've defined it. And other people were like, wow, that's really aggressive. And what we really wanted was something kind of halfway in between. And I feel like platform engineering is an attempt to define the role and the behaviors without just trying to like box it in as a definition, whereas DevOps was kind of just expansive and just went and went and went, and SRE is definitely very defined if you go by the strict Google definition. And so I think what we're ending up with is DevOps is like, these are the patterns you should be doing. And then platform engineering and SRE are more focused, like, here are the very, practical implementations of that.
Yeah. And just to pick up on that is just to say, it's like, I think it's pretty common. I think we think sometimes, it's like the technical development side is its own little world, but it's like in the business, right? If you think about it, this issue comes up everywhere. Like I mentioned, like culture, but I think a lot of times like goals or objectives, depending on how like your company uses them, often it would be something like we're going to grow revenue X%, or we're going to, win in this market. And it's like, those things are fine to say, or like, we're going to be customer obsessed. That's a common one too. It's like, those things are fine to say, but unless, someone comes in behind it and really defines what it means, right, and at least how we're going to do it, or something that we're going to do differently, or maybe even the same with others, then, all of these things just become like very nebulous goals, right? That are nebulous statements that like kind of anything can fit into it, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. So I think just like, this is just the hard part about running corporations and large groups of people. It's like at the top, like it's not enough just to like lay out these goals. I think this is a lot of times what executives want. It's like, hired smart people. I just told them to grow the business. It's like, no, you have to come in with like a point of view of like, this is what I specifically mean. And it is hard because when you do that, you're constraining people from doing other things, right? And that may be frustrating, right? But at the same time, you have to say like, this is what I expect that group to be doing. And, and it's hard. So I think DevOps is just like, if you will, the engineering technical version of that. What do you think, Cote?
Well, this is making me think. We've first of all, I think that's accurate. You've got to tell people how you want to accomplish things, like go over the tools and tactics and how you're going to actually do it, not just what outcome you want to achieve, and delegate and leave it to them. And I think to fit some of these things together, we were bringing up the SRE stuff, and maybe this is what platform engineering is trying to be, is like, you do have the like very clear things you do in the, I forget if there's an SRE book sequel. I've only read that one. But
there's I think there's a workbook. Yeah, there's a workbook. Yeah.
but you know, the critique of the SRE book is like the middle part where it's like, and here's how you use the Google platform that no one will ever be able to use except for
Right.
us, including extensive screenshots of command line, you know, tracing and debugging, which is bizarre that would be in there. Let's go over a tool no one could ever use. And so maybe platform engineering is like, yes, but what if we had the tool? And because you know, it more or less describes a lot of what I think platform engineers would do. Maybe a little too much like operational runtime stuff. You know, uh, perhaps is the issue there, but maybe that's what platform engineering is seeking. It's like we finally want to be able to put SRE stuff into practice, which would be nice. Now, this reminds me of another thing that is an all-encompassing, expansive thing that I encountered this week, especially on a dog walk. I found a great use for Chat GPT. Sadly, I couldn't use the new voice mode because I don't know if you or the listeners have used the new voice mode, but I haven't quite figured out when you can use it and not use it. I think you can only start a brand new chat with it without loading anything into it. So I had loaded this recent Magic Quadrant from Gartner, and it kept saying DHI, and I was like, DHI, what is that? But there's this is it? I don't know if it's new, but it's distributed hybrid infrastructure. And as I was listening to it, I realized what they were talking about is computers, basically. Now this category, it's distributed hybrid infrastructure. And now that I'm saying it, I wonder what undistributed hybrid infrastructure would be. Always good to ask these questions, but it's basically, I think at least one other of us have read this, but I think what they're saying is an application that you run in a container or a VM that may or may not be one only that you wrote versus a packaged or a commercial off the shelf application, but that you can run in a public cloud or a not public cloud. And you can also manage all of the stuff on top of it, you know, do all of your regular systems management and things like that. Plus, you know, of course, integrate with Active Directory. And, you know, I don't think it includes, it's ambiguous if it includes like all the way down to like managing things. Basically, I think it's like Kubernetes and VMware is what they're covering here, running across different data centers and edge. So computers, more or less. But
I have a slightly different take. I guess I would just say I feel like it's just hybrid cloud is what I would have called it, right? You know,
yes.
Yeah.
and I guess maybe just to expand the definition a little bit, it's sort of like in AWS is established. Can I put some servers on site and essentially have access to some subset of the, if you will, public cloud features and use it, right? And also deploy my workloads there and have like slightly more control. It's kind of how I think of it. And so, so not surprisingly, right? You know, you see kind of the usual suspects there. Obviously, Microsoft and AWS have, you know, various hybrid cloud offerings. They've been out there for a while. And then, you know, and obviously VMware has been doing this for a while with cloud partners. And Oracle's up there, which surprised me a little bit, but I guess it's not because I have seen them talk a lot about more and more of doing this. I just don't think of them as being so strong on the public cloud. But the ones, and then IBM was also on it as well. But the ones that really shocked me was both Red Hat and Google Cloud were just mentioned in the, it's like honorable mentions. And I was like, wow, it's like, because you know, there's this whole Anthos thing. Although I don't hear Google Cloud talk about that as much. Like, which just maybe I'm not listening. I don't know. I just don't feel like
They're talking, but you're not listening.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I was listening for a while there, and I heard a lot about it. And same thing with Red Hat. Red Hat has various OpenShift options, and I know they have various partnerships there. So I was surprised those two were left out. That almost made me question the whole thing. Like, what exactly? Because I was like, man, I know I've been on calls with Google, and they've gone through great demos on how they do both, right? The whole thing. So that did make me question understanding the overall definition of this. But yeah, I don't know. That's my take. Matt, what do you think?
I kind of jumped to the same place you did. I was like, where's Google? And you know, they list them in the honorable mentions. My feedback for Gartner is just one more sentence saying this is why we left them out. Like you didn't meet the criteria. Which
Mm.
piece of criteria did they not meet? Don't make me read this whole thing. Make AI tell me what the missing thing was, but I can't figure it out. Yeah.
Well, I'd go even one more. I mean, to me, this is just back to like bad analyst or bad report. It's like how can you not have Google Cloud in?
Well, maybe
here?
they don't have AB integration. And they're
Well,
like,
but I just think it's
I just need that one reason.
yeah,
I just need to know, like, this is why we didn't include them.
All right, to your point, like if you're going to leave them out and put an honorable mention, then you have to clearly state what it is. And maybe, I don't know,
that's all I ask.
But I don't think that. But I would go further. I'd be like, listen, you created a stupid report if you've left them out, because these vendors, like if I tasked anyone listening, I said to you, go figure out the best hybrid cloud solution, and they're like, oh well, we're not looking at Red Hat and Google Cloud because they're not on this thing, or because it's like, well, I'd be like, you didn't know. That's it's kind of back to like, you're not doing your job. Like now there's maybe valid reasons not to select them, right? I agree, but like,
they
have to be considered, right? And the same thing too. It's like they have this, of course, they have the whole Magic Quadrant here. They can stick them wherever they want. They can put them over there in challengers or niche player or whatever. That would be much more useful. Like put them way over in challengers and be like, missing key features, but have something interesting. Because at least you'd be like, okay, you can look at the report and get some information.
Because then you read it.
So afraid? Yeah. Like, look at this. I mean, I could just go on for hours on this Magic Quadrant, but it's like, why?
I can only assume that Google is the top right.
I would agree, but like, why have
maybe they should be the most honorable of mentions.
right. But my whole point is like, they have 4 quadrants here. Only 2 are really used, with IBM sort of stuck in visionary, just barely in visionary, and then the entire challenger quadrant is empty. Like, it's just white space. It's like, what is the point of this whole entire thing?
It's hard to do a quadrant with only 3 quadrants.
I would agree, but it's just pointless. This whole thing is pointless. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I look at this stuff, I'm just like, it's just a waste of ink, or it's like, again, if this isn't what the challengers quadrants is for, then you shouldn't have. And yeah, you're right. We should just have, I don't know what is a cube. If you just have 3 cubes,
triangle.
I think we've
triangle.
We've used our
triangle.
We've used our mutual cans of worms to open each can up. I think is what's going on here. Now my little wormy thing is I like to read behind the lines on things, and to me, well, out of many things that you said, Brandon, one of the things that's interesting is that IBM and Red Hat are treated as 2 separate things. And so I have to imagine, I bet the AR teams had, like, it might be a case of getting what you asked for, but you're sorry about that, right? Whereas, like, it seems like, I would imagine if you combine together both of them, you would probably, like, the Excel spreadsheet would crash.
You'd probably be in the challenger quadrant,
right? And so, like it's a strange thing that whatever, it's very weird that they're not together. So
yes,
and I wonder, and this might also drive the Google thing a little bit, where it's probably under the control of the analyst relations people at IBM or Red Hat if they get considered separate or the same. So that conversation probably went on. And then similarly, I wonder if, like, sometimes in these things, like the vendor being evaluated just sort of like, as people used to say, pieces out. They're just like not interested, right? And just kind of don't get involved. And so maybe the Google people just didn't want to hustle for it, which isn't to say it's their fault. But then to kind of reiterate what you were saying, Brandon, like, and I think we've discussed this before about Magic Quadrants, is there's some of these Magic Quadrants come about, or whatever they may be, and I feel like what I really want to read is a discussion and defense of the whole category and like what it is, right? And you brought up a good way to discuss that is, like, if Google doesn't show up in this category, what is this category? And without the statements that you had, like, well, if you had a paragraph that was like, Anthos doesn't actually do anything, okay, I can see why that would be in there. But, like,
don't make me jump to my own conclusions. You're the analyst.
Or maybe there needs to be, I guess it would be at the if it's the upper right, it would be the lower left. Maybe there needs to be a little circle called the honorable. And like all the people that you thought would be on there, they show up on the honorable.
They should just
area.
draw a little circle next to the magic quadrant with the names of the honorables, and you're like, what is this circle over
Well,
here?
Because it seems like if you are an honorable mention, I mean, I know I'm saying this for the third or fourth time here, but that we've all said it is, well, you should still be ranked in there and have a discussion of your criteria of
well, here,
what
let's
is
read
elect.
I mean, in the spirit of just boring everyone, I'll just read the final sentence in the honorable mentions because it gives some clarity here. Here's what it says, quote, following are several noteworthy vendors that did not meet all the inclusion criteria for distributed hybrid capabilities, customer numbers, and regional requirements, but could still be suitable for clients depending on their specific deployment patterns. And you're like, okay, you know what would be great? Would be like, because like regional requirements is a great example. It's like if you're in a region where where it is publicly available, that is going to have zero impact on you. Like I would say, like most of the United States, North America, right? And they could just literally say that, like, because the three vendors they list are Google Cloud Platform, Red Hat, and SUSE. I know less about SUSE, so I'm going to stay away from that one. But the other two, for sure, they do most of these things. And and the customer numbers is even more ridiculous, right? Because that just means that like they didn't give Gartner a number of references or they didn't have enough customers in the region. But it's like, that doesn't matter. You could still evaluate that because you're in the region and maybe you'll be the first, or like they have something there. So again, just piling on the dead horse here. It's like, this is what the challengers quadrant's for, that why leave it blank? And if you're going to put these people in there, then just simply list GCP, not listed because not available in region X, or did not have the customer stuff. And it's like, and the final point is this, like the report is supposed to be serving, as Gartner will tell you ad nauseum, their end users who are IT CIOs and IT professionals. This is not helping them, right? Bearing this in like a footnote is definitely not helping them. So it's like you need to expand their criteria and just drop the customer counts and the geography until such time you have it like a much bigger sample.
Well, I think maybe to close this out, I advise people that the number one way to interpret any analyst report is if it's indicating that the place you work is good, then it's accurate. And so therefore, I deem this Magic Quadrant accurate. Since
let's move on.
Okay, you are a leader. You and 5 other people are leaders. So five people in the product marketing organization and analyst relations. They're going out. They're going to have a great Thanksgiving. They all bought the reprint rights and they all updated their MBOs to show that we were named a leader in the Magic Quadrant. And congratulations to all 5.
Yeah,
and the other thing I want to say is I think we fixed the main thing with it, which is like this is just hybrid cloud, and I think. If my understanding was that like this is going over hybrid cloud instead of trying to figure out what distributed hybrid infrastructure is, then that takes a little bit of the edge off of it, where I see what we're discussing here. And as I was listening to this, I was thinking, it would be didn't someone talk about super clouds at some point? Is that the same thing as a hybrid cloud? I think so. I think that was the Cube people who, like, for a couple of years have been going on super clouds. I got to go look up what the super cloud definition. And
I think that was like, it was hybrid cloud with 2 public clouds or more.
Yeah. Like, but I was thinking of like, if we took, maybe this is a good task for the AI.
A Venn diagram there.
Yeah, if we took the criteria for what a distributed hybrid infrastructure is, and then told the AI to go look at all the, like, Dave and everyone's super cloud talk, like, would they actually like be the same thing? And then I was imagining, what if we were in a world where instead of coming up with a new phrase, people like Gartner would just use an existing phrase, and this was the super cloud Magic Quadrant. And like, man, what a much more spicier existence we would all be living if we could have the super cloud. Well, speaking of super clouds, I think Brandon was reminding us that AWS reInvent, is it next week, Brandon?
That's right.
Oh. And I didn't even realize that. I'm so wrapped up in this Santa Claus and Zwart Pete and Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's just a big jambalaya over here of stuff or whatever. But like I assume they're going to talk about AI stuff, right? How they're doing great with AI, doing really well. Do we have any other predictions for what's going to happen at reInvent? I know Corey Quinn's going to complain about something. at least one, maybe two.
Well, I don't have anything that's I feel like novel other than one prediction is I do think as to my knowledge, Jesse has not been since being named CEO. He's not shown up and done at least not done anything on stage at reInvent. So my prediction specifically this year is that he's back out of retirement and he's going to do something with the CEO of Anthropic. Like I don't know if it's going to be like a little stop and chat,
a little bit of stage time.
Yeah, like a little bit of that, like just some kind of like,
look, we gave this guy $5 billion. Check him out.
Because I do think, and I also think, like reading between the lines, like Slepsky out. I think Jassy is asserting more control over there. Obviously, he's appointed a new CEO. I expect the new CEO will do all the old Jassy stuff, like go through all the services, announce the new Graviton processor.
Oh yeah, because this is the first time with the new CEO.
Yeah,
right.
The new AI. Like he'll do kind of like legacy AWS keynote stuff. But I think Jassy jumps in, comes down from the ivory tower, is like, let me tell you about this great AI stuff. And I think it's the CEO of Anthropic, maybe someone else, but he'll have somebody else, maybe, Jensen, like there'll be some other big name on there. And then it's almost like, all right, once he's done, he'll then turn it over. So that's my only prediction. Other than that, I don't know what the over under on AI is going to be. Probably be mentioned around 300 times. And we'll be so tired of hearing about it at the end. We'll never want to hear it again. But I think that's the obvious prediction.
Well, maybe they'll flash up this magic quadrant as some evidence of their, what they're up to. Also, I guess, do they have some sort of platform engineering product? Maybe they'll launch that finally. Because don't they have AWS DevOps something?
Oh God, you think they'll do like backstage as a service?
Oh, that would be fun, but they would probably use their own thing.
I don't know. I feel like AWS is such a speeds and feeds company. I just can't imagine them all the developers.
That's a horrible service.
It doesn't really I think they want to be like, networking's 10 times better, compute's better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't see them up there being like, Garmin up there. It's like, we have a new way to work virtually,
Yeah. We've got the one way, the Amazon way, in our 53 principles. That's
6-page papers as a service.
Yes.
Well, wait, that's the AI.
So I haven't caught up on this in a little bit, and I know. I was going to say YouTube, but I know at least Brandon pays attention to this stuff closer than I do. But I came across these ideas that the advances in AI have stopped. It's going to cost too much. It's not going to get any better. It's just plateaued. I was going to say flatlined, but a plateau. It's Mesa.
Yeah.
And now we're going to enjoy the beautiful skyline. It's going to be nice and level. We're going to be able to bike more easily. Has anything happened in the past week or so that we're going to get past this malaise, or is it just? I also hear this folklore that come December, the AI knows that it's like me. It only has about 2 more weeks left for work, so it needs to start slowing down.
It's going on vacation.
It's like here, gives back all the tokens and calls.
Well, a lot of people Nvidia released its earnings, and a lot of people are reading into it, and also Benedict Evans, as Slides Benedict, as we like to say, he released his new gargantuan report. I think it's called AI Eats the World. I think is this one. But anyway, so you should check it out. But I guess everyone's sort of circling the same kind of talking point that it does seem like, at least at the moment, that the rapid pace of LLMs has declined, right? Doesn't mean LLMs are over anything like that. It just seems like we're not seeing the giant leaps forward. So
but isn't this like a last 6 months trend? I mean, it's
right, but I think that's where
we're in the 3rd year of this AI boom or whatever, and I feel it's just way too early to be, making these prognostications about we've plateaued because it's Tuesday and we haven't done anything since Thursday.
Well, this is a podcast and new things to talk about. So one.
Okay. Sorry. Carry on.
I do think there does seem to be a general sense of at least the rapid pace of improvement. It does. And again, your point is well taken, Matt. We're just at a point in time, but at least the trajectory that people have been talking about, like Nvidia, OpenAI, and others, that hey, just more data, bigger training models will lead to significant improvements. It seems like collectively, at the moment, at least, right? People are doubting that. At least it's slowing down. Doesn't mean it's all over. And I think that part is interesting because I think we're kind of at that. And we're also at the same point. Again, the other constant talking point, we've said it on here as well, is what are the use cases? Where is this actually going to revolutionize something? I know our friends over at Cloud Class, Brian, did a whole episode Sunday conversation about like, where are the specific use cases? So it just sets up kind of this interesting moment. It's like, and then I guess the earnings are the other kind of thing that's interesting. So if you kind of dive into this and say like, it looks like 50% of the revenue from Nvidia comes from 4 to 5 large vendors that are unnamed. I think we can all safely assume they're the large hyperscalers, Facebook, right? So what we kind of have here, I think, is this interesting idea. It's like, yes, Nvidia sold out for the next couple of years. 4 or 5 people are buying most of the capacity. They're buying it with the belief that they're going to be able to build something that will, if you will, become a very profitable business for them, that will justify all this investment. So it's sort of like speculation, right? So all the money goes to Nvidia. You've got large companies have plenty of cash to spend on this that are bought up in the hopes that they will be able to resell something going forward. And I think that part is just kind of interesting, right? Because we've seen these things go south very, very quickly, right? So it's like, like think of like Nokia, right? It's like Nokia was the, the quote unquote, best cell phone you've ever seen, right? And then overnight, in a matter of a few years, the entire business goes down. I'm not predicting that's going to happen with Nvidia, but I do think you're at this point. And if you go listen to Jensen like speak, he's always talking about like he has this pitch about like, you need to create the next LLM now, because if you're 3 minutes late or 3 months late, then your company's worth a fraction of what the other ones are. So he's kind of making this valuation argument. It's just sort of like, you want to be first because it gets you the highest valuation. What he's not making the case for is like, you want to be first because you're going to make the most money, because none of these businesses yet throw off a ton of cash. And I think that's like a real interesting sleight of hand going on here, is that he's out there talking about how everyone needs to do it. And if you don't do it fast enough, you're not going to be valued as much. He's not talking about like your cash flow will actually be higher, right? And I think that part is really interesting. So I just think it's fascinating just to be kind of to your point, man. It's like, I don't know, we're just at a point in time. So we could be at the point of time where like, this is the apex, where it's like, NVIDIA has never been more valuable, because the expectations or the belief is that something is going to come, but it may not come. So this is the apex and come down. Or we just may, to what the point you're making, Matt, was just sort of like, maybe this is just a small little moment in time where it slowed down for a few months. Everyone sort of like was unquestioning it, but then it starts to rocket back up, because somebody else either invents a new way to do training, or that the training does actually work as you get more data in there. So I think all of it's just fun to like speculate around. So I don't know, Matt, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I feel like there's probably, we're at a supply outpacing demand, or not outpacing demand understanding what they can do. And so I feel like there's a whole lot of probably amazing LLMs, but as a consumer of that, I kind of look at the problems in front of me. I'm like, well, what can I use the AI for? And which one of these would I use? Which LLM would I pick? And you kind of get this paralysis of, and I need to spend how much? And and meanwhile the field just kept charging ahead, and I'm three months later, I'm kind of like, what fields, what tools do I have? I haven't really progressed, and they're trying to tell me like, oh, it's going crazy over here, and maybe the suppliers are like, well, nobody's buying this stuff, maybe we need to pivot some of our investment, and that looks like a plateauing, but maybe maybe it's a retrenching of training, or maybe it's a retrenching of sales, or they're trying to find these use cases and build them out, because it's like, how much faster do the LLMs need to go? Was that the gating function right now?
Yeah. Well, I guess a couple things there. It's like, one, when you get into the earnings a little bit too, or there's been a lot of talk about this, it's like, how much of this is training, because that's where NVIDIA is the best, versus inference, right? So people are talking about the inference side of it's growing, which is sort of just people using it, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you're an NVIDIA investor, maybe that worries you, because there are a lot of chips that claim to be just as good at the inference, like all the Google TPMs and others. So that's kind of an interesting, just an NVIDIA thing. It's like, well, do people need NVIDIA if it's mostly inference? Probably not. But then I think the two parallels, the two use cases or polls that I'm using is like, on one hand, like last week, Microsoft had their big conference, And we didn't really talk about it much because like there just wasn't that much interesting, at least interesting to me. So, but one of the things that they showed, right, was like they talked about AI agents, which is kind of their big thing. But it feels very uninspired. And the one that they talked about was like there would be like a project manager agent that sort of like helps you keep your project on time and does all project management functions. I was like, my gosh, like I can't think of a more depressing thing to be involved with, like than an AI asking you for status updates about your project. It's just like this is what we're getting, right? So like all the AI agents like for Microsoft kind of felt like that, kind of felt like, oh, like we'll take this role that kind of is just
It's
not
like they brought
with, and we'll make it even worse, right? And then I always had, although Microsoft's not the one, but then you have this moment of like, yeah, we have to all return to work and be in the same office to like report to the project manager agent. You're just like, this is dystopian future of just I don't like, gosh, I don't want any part of this AI. So that's on one side. That's like the very pessimistic side. But then I think the one, if someone asked me the most tangible use case for AI that could be revolutionary would be like the full self-driving. Does AI actually unlock full self-driving such that like it's better than human beings, and the thought of driving the car yourself is mostly a distant memory? So that would be, because that's like kind of like how we live and how we work, lots of things would change. So you can kind of decide like where we are between the two, and it's like full self-driving has been talked about probably for 50, 60 years, but really we've been talking about it that we're on the verge of it for 10 years. And so
I mean, Waymo's close, right? I mean, Waymo's racking up the miles.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned last episode, like I see the Waymo in, like I actually can see it, right? You can actually see it happen. That's why I'm interested in this use case. It's like, it's not science fiction. It's sort of like, can it scale? So if you believe that like more AI gets us to that's faster, that would be something to be, to your point, Matt, be very optimistic about. And, so I don't know, everyone just has to kind of decide what they want to believe, but I just think it's a fun time, both for, obviously for Nvidia, it's kind of a scary time because I don't know how much more valuable they can get, but if they unlock full self-driving, they could get a lot more valuable. And then for the rest of us, it's sort of like, I don't know, like maybe it has slowed down and we're just going to be able to, if you will, proofread our documents better, which is good. I mean, that's good, but that's not revolutionizing the world.
It's just a better Grammarly.
As we like to say, yeah.
But I think I mean, we'll see if this sticks. But I'm gonna go with the Brandon Consulting here, which is what the AI industrial complex needs now is use cases. It needs to like show its value broadly outside of this small original base of 4 organizations, about how you would use this. Not only how you would use it, but why you would get ROI on it, right?
Right.
Because you could spend a lot of money to get a really good grammar checker, to write really good reports, to do all sorts of really good stuff. But is it really going to like make your organization run better? And the use cases are always important for a technology, but it's especially important here because, based on what you're saying, if, let's say, I don't know what percentage vast majority is, but if the vast majority of the beneficiaries of generative AI stuff are these 4 companies, then you ask like, okay, so how are they benefiting from it? If they're benefiting from it based on other people thinking they're going to benefit from it, that doesn't count. That's kind of a pyramid-ish sort of thing, right? Where you're just passing on the actual accountability eventually to someone else. But if they're benefiting, as these 4 companies often do, or especially some of them, from just like advertising, then like, Ford doesn't care about advertising. Like they want to advertise to sell their stuff, but it's not like, it's not like a technology they're going to bring in, right? Which I think is very similar to 2 previous sort of like, I think maybe what we need to learn is that anytime you hear something is eating the world, it's not a good idea. Like whether it's software or, no one said data was eating the world, but it was similar, right? That like big data was going to eat the world, and then AI eating the world. It's just like, no, have you ever tried to eat the world? It's very difficult, right? Like,
I do think as people go into watching next week's reInvent, hey, while you do it, if you do, join us in the Slack. There's usually plenty of commentary going during the live presentation. So if you're looking for something else to do while you're watching, but I think one of the things you can do is sort of like, how often are there presenters talking about like something that can help you do something existing versus like the AI just doing something for you. So for example, like I don't want a project manager helping me run the project. I want the system, the AI, to do the project for me. You know what I mean? Like I want the thing to do the work, right? Just like self-driving. It's like I don't want to drive better. I want the car to do the driving. So when we hear this next week, it's like, and I'm sure there's going to be like a lot of AWS, and we've been using AI forever, and we've been doing all these benefits. But are they things that like, oh, it just does it for you, right?
Right.
Versus
You
like
don't
it makes
you
it a
don't want
little
it
bit better
to
for you.
you don't want it to augment. You want it to like make it so you don't have to do the thing in the first place. I'm trying to say avoid replace, but like you don't want to improve project management. You want to just like be able to do something else because project management
Absolutely
is taken care of. Now, speaking of things that are taken care of, we talked about Podman last episode, and we got a lot of helpful commentary clarifying what is
Yes.
going on with Podman. Now, in true me fashion, I didn't really actually pay attention to that much of it, so I'm not a great person to summarize it. But Brandon, I feel like you were the first line of internalizing and taking in this feedback. What
Yeah.
did we
So
learn?
first, I want to thank Warren. Warren was in the Slack, wrote a lot of feedback, which I
A
appreciated. So
lot.
I'm going to try to take a lot of conversation from Slack and just kind of give you like, here are probably the 5 reasons that you should think about Podman. And then if I get them wrong, I'm also going to put a link in here to several podcast episodes, one done by our friend Craig Box, where they interview some of the people behind Podman. And I'm going to link to the specific Podman in Action Red Hat developer book. So if you didn't get enough after all this, you can check those things out. So here they are. Here are the things that Podman, if you will, does better than Docker. One, daemon and privilege separation. So just a quick read here. Podman does have optional. Sorry, let's start again. Podman does have an optional daemon for Docker API compatibility, but it's not required. Unlike Docker, Podman doesn't rely on containerd running at boot or continuously to manage containers. So basically, if you use this at boot time, you can essentially not have to wait on Docker. So that makes sense. Also, each user has their own container store in Podman, leveraging Linux built-in privilege separation. So this basically avoids a single root level store serving all users. So better security, right? That seems good. Systemd integration. Podman integrates well with Systemd, making it easier to start containers during boot, right? And then rootless by default. Podman is rootless by default, reducing security risks, unlike Docker, which traditionally ran containers as root unless configured otherwise. And then finally, kind of the simple, everyone understand this one, lightweight installation. Podman installation is about a quarter size of Docker Engine, making it ideal for resource constrained environments like Raspberry Pis or anything, things like that. And then I believe you pronounce this as Quay.io. That's basically Key. Thank you. Key.io. That's basically Red Hat's, if you will, alternative to Docker Hub, which they don't have, if you will, the licensing limits. So that's my best summary of all these things. I think if you're interested, and then I did listen to one of the podcasts with some of the creators of it. I believe I'm paraphrasing them. I think it's sort of like if you took kind of like containers and kind of came from the mindset of I want them to look like kind of Linux default services. That's sort of the mindset that the creators came to it with. So that's kind of the Podman view of the world, whereas Docker sort of came at it. I would describe it more as like an application mindset. So those are all the reasons that you should check out Podman. Matt, did I get anything wrong? Is there anything that you can immediately correct for me?
Well, I think a lot of the correction was aimed at me because it was just like, hey Matt, what does this do? I was like, here's what I think it does, and I was a little bit off. To me, Podman had always been in the back of my head as one of these days Docker's going to piss me off so much that I'm going to switch to Podman. and all of these are very valid reasons. The security function. Yeah, if I was running this stuff in production, I probably would take time to investigate these things. Podman does a lot of really good things about productizing, not productizing, but productionizing your Docker runtime. And yeah, if I was running this stuff in a production environment as opposed to a developer laptop, I probably would do this. And a lot of the Podman and the associated tooling from Red Hat, now CNCF, covers a lot of the same Docker desktop territory. So I think the only one more bullet point to add to the difference is, obviously Docker is going to support Docker Swarm, and Podman has a bigger focus on Kubernetes. So Kubernetes compatibility, so you can actually like just straight deploy pods right into Podman. So thank you for the correction. I went and downloaded the book. I got to the second page of the PDF, which is here's the differences between Docker and Podman, and I'm done.
There you go. That's
Love
perfect.
that page.
But I do think I just wanted again
Great page.
shout out to Warren. He posted all of this in the Slack. So if we ever get anything wrong like this,
Please.
you can always join. You can always join the Slack. I read pretty much all the messages, so
Me
definitely
too.
feel free to do that. And I also do think having kind of like delved into this a little bit more, it will be interesting now that this is part of the CNCF. Like it does, because there was the other kind of angle that was discussed in Slack. It's like, yeah, all this about Podman is true, but a lot of people said still Docker's like really well known, has a lot of documentation, people are comfortable with it. But it'll be interesting now that this is in the CNCF, is like, does this kind of grow over time as sort of like, if you will, become like the default way to use it because it's open source, it's free, it's got some nice features there. So we'll see. Time will tell on that, but interesting, nice contributions by Red Hat. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of it.
They should start making magic quadrants about this kind of stuff. I think that would be very interesting to, and maybe they kind of rate the communities, the kind of strategies, even creating the categories of stuff. I mean, I think like Gartner and these open source communities are just like two communities that just wouldn't see it coming when they were crashed together. It would be amazing.
Kote, you were going into like negative income territory for analysts. We were discussing before the show, like how do analysts make money and the like. And it's like, it's probably not by doing deep dives into DevRel communities and developer tooling. That is just like, that's where money goes to die. Right?
Yeah. I mean, like what even, we don't need to we should get to the rest of the show, but like I could just imagine the thought exercise is like, okay, I know Podman and Docker are in this quadrant. What else? Like, what are the other things? And then by the time you brought all the projects in, and then maybe even you would, I guess you would stick to open source, which would add a whole other dimension of absurdity.
No, bring in the commercial ones. Somebody's got to pay those analysts' bills, right?
That's true. And then
you want to give like Docker Inc. a chance to put themselves into the top right quadrant. So they're like, been here for years.
That's true. And then at some point your category would expand so much that you're debating whether install shield should be in there or not. Like, and like, you're like, does Apple's
let this thing in here?
Does however I make a
mention install shield?
Is that brew thing? Is that an honorable mention? Like what belongs where? Like it would be delightful.
Well, again, nobody's paying for that.
Well, what's even more delightful than install shield is bureaucracy. Do we have any of that, Brandon?
Just a few other quick things. I wanted to give a shout out to Andrew. He created something called the multiple tab to PDF printer. So it's basically in Chrome. He felt like he needed to basically print out multiple tabs. So if you have that problem, check out Andrew's plugin there. Links in the show notes. And then also I wanted to thank someone left one of these t-shirts, quote, "I'm a freak in the spreadsheets" on my doorstep. It has to be somebody here in Austin that listens to this podcast.
Wow.
That's what it would be. So I didn't see who you were, and
this is a little concerning. How do they know, Brandon? If you don't know who this person is, how do they know where you are?
I think they know. There are people in the area.
I guess you can look it up.
Know where I live. It's not that secret. So I was just gonna say thanks for the spreadsheet. And sorry.
Why are you not wearing it now?
I should have worn it today, didn't. But yeah, I need to. So thanks for the spreadsheet, and I'm sorry I didn't know who you were. I probably should know who you are, but I don't. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, we need little stickers that say something like, "Don't blame me. I voted for VLOOKUP." Let's see how that. Maybe it's too soon for that kind of commentary. Well, speaking of things that it's too soon for, there's some conferences coming up, February 2nd and 5th. Or as I wrote it in our show notes, February 3rd and 5th. It's configuration.
We might correct that.
Yeah, it's Configuration Management Camp in Ghent. A lovely conference. I heard back from them about the talk that I submitted, and I'll wait to reveal if it was accepted or not till some other time. I don't know. Is that good suspense? Is everyone on the edge of their seat? Anyways, it's a great conference. If you haven't checked it out already, you should go there. And I'll be there no matter what happens. Also, DevOps Days LA, which is co-located with Scale 22X. big old open sourcey Linux, et cetera, so forth and so on. A conference is going on over there in Pasadena, California, March 6th to 9th, 2025. We have you can use a discount code called DevOps, singular. It may be the last DevOps. We'll see by that time how these articles have panned out. Now, speaking of the last DevOps or not having the last DevOps, Matt Ray, what do you have to recommend this episode?
Well, I finally got to make the jump to macOS Sequoia. Got the all clear from IT, so upgraded my personal machines and my work machine at the same time. Haven't made the jump to passwords yet. I know that was Brandon's first question, but my recommendation is the iPhone mirroring app. It's pretty great. Now instead of having my phone on my desk so I can grab it for MFA, I could just leave it on the charger. It stays charging all the time, and I get pull that up when I need my MFA. The only other caveat to that is it doesn't work with Synergy. I can't type into it, which is weird. I can type from the keyboard on the machine, but not from Synergy. So Apple, get on that.
I think maybe there's maybe. I've always wanted to write a piece for Harper's Magazine. I think it still exists, and I think there's some sort of piece in here.
You better hurry.
You better hurry.
I think there's some idea in here that like it turns out that iPhone mirroring is really just good for 2FA. And what does that say about like the usability of 2FA, that like this whole time all we really needed was a little window on our desktop where we could get the numbers instead of taking a device out of our pocket. And I also feel like it's almost reminiscent of, I'm sure we've all seen this picture. It'd be hard to find, but there's that picture of some brilliant sysadmins who taped a bunch of those RSA MFA things onto a piece of cardboard and pointed a webcam at it. And I feel like this is very similar. That like if you're avoiding having to physically have the device in hand, even though you may have it on your lap,
right,
and on the screen where you're supposed to be entering a password to verify that you can do this thing, it's almost just like pointing a webcam at a bunch of these little sticks you have like duct taped up to a wall.
But Apple needs to close the loop though. I need copy and paste from it.
Yeah.
You can, though. You can. That copy paste on the clipboard. That's been available for a while. If you have the universal clipboard.
Wait. I can. So no. Let me make a correction. Mm-hmm. I need the copy and paste like I have in iPhoto, where I can double click on an image and pull text off of my iPhone on my laptop.
Yeah, you can do that.
Get out.
Okay, so if you have the iCloud setting enabled, what you do, if you just select text on your iPhone, copy it, then go to your favorite text editor on your Mac, and then do paste.
It doesn't work with Authenticator app.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe not.
That's what I want to copy and paste.
Well, I know, like, when you get the text message codes, I did that a lot. Like if a text messages you, like, here's
on Slack right now, and
you can do that as well. Anything. So that's been there for a while.
No, it's not working. We'll have to have an offline session.
We'll get you figured out, man. We'll get you worked out.
And also it seems like maybe if you combine this with Tailscale, you could just like mirror your phone from across the world.
You could leave your phone at home.
There's probably some sort of NFC or Bluetooth thing, but like, I don't know. There's I'm sure they've thought of all this, but the mirroring is pretty cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, Brandon, what do you have to recommend?
Well, I have one other thought on the mirroring. I just want to say that my theory is when they make kind of the Apple glasses, right? That's where that's why they've been doing iPhone mirroring, is you'll be able to project your iPhone.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think. Because for a while I was like, I really like it too. I know we've talked about it on previous episodes, but I'm like, oh, I bet you that's what the win is. It's like, oh, I can have the phone project. And then if you take the hand gesture. So that's my, that's why I believe the product managers got it in. Otherwise, you'd just be like, I don't think all everyone cares about is 2FA. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Well, on the AI front, my recommendation this week is something we've also mentioned before. It's, I guess, Cursor. It's this IDE. I had heard about it, and it's basically has AI integrated in it. So that's not new or anything. But like, I just think the way they did the integration is absolutely perfect, right? So you can basically write the code in your left pane. On the right pane, you've got access to all the good LLMs. And I love the fact that when it basically makes suggestions, you can say like, yeah, that's what I want, kind of work it out in the pane, what you want. And then it will basically show the code in there, and then it will let you do accept changes. And so it's just like, exactly what's going on. And then I also like the fact that, for example, the little project I was doing, I was like, because my Mac always has the wrong Python on it. I was like, can I just run this in Docker? And I guess maybe in the future it'll be Podman, but it said, yeah, sure. So it did all the stuff for me. It created all the Docker commands. It created the right image. So it just it's like all the stuff I kind of know how to do, right? But it like actually did it all right. And I didn't have to spend any time doing it. So if you're doing little projects, I was messing with Python, but it probably works with other languages. Definitely check out Cursor. For the hobbyist programmer, I think it's a must-have. Check it out.
I don't do a lot of programming anymore, but even I know that maybe one of the greatest productivity boosts for developers that probably for our generation would be if Apple just kept Python up to date on the OS and Ruby as well. Like I feel like for as long as I've ever been using Macs, it's always like, oh boy, here we go. Like you got to go search around for how to update this and do that. And I always think like, why don't they just keep it updated? They're always
there you are. Before you get to your recommendation, I think that's another perfect example of AI. It's like, I don't know where everything is on this Mac, but you can look at it all and figure out how to configure it so I'm using the right Python all the time and all the system variables and everything like that. Otherwise, I just give up and be like, I'll just keep it in a nice little container that works. But that would be a great AI feature.
Yes. Well, I have a recommendation and an update of a previous sort of recommendation. So I got the names of these things. This one's a little less terrible, but it's the Insta360 Flow Pro, not Flow Amateur gimbal. It doesn't really look like a professional device that a professional might use, but it's a gimbal. Do you need a gimbal? Probably not. But I got it because, I do a lot of these walking around filming myself videos. It's pretty good for if you want to use your front-facing camera instead of your selfie camera to do videos, which are much higher quality. So that part is actually really good. A gimbal, it's like a selfie stick, but it has like little machines that make sure that your camera stays level, basically. And it'll follow you around so you can like walk around the circle and have it follow you. It's a good little device. Now, the most important thing, it has a little, I forget if it's a hot or a cold shoe, but it's got that little shoe thing so you can stick your wireless microphone on it, which previous gimbals I've had don't have, which is annoying. But it's good if you're into these kind of things. Now, it's got a really long selfie stick, so it's also that. So it's an all-in-one combo thing, and it does indeed fit in your pocket, a jacket pocket that you might wear on a very cold winter day. That's a big, bulky jacket pocket, but it fits well. Now, my update is I feel like maybe we haven't gone to the board with this, but here in the Kote Skotak household, I think we've determined that we're going to end our multi-year initiative with the Passwords app. It's fine for what it does, but it's more about what it doesn't do that I think is lacking. The Apple Passwords app, it doesn't store like credit cards, passports, driver's licenses, all that stuff that I think I've come to, both of us, we found, have come to love having in one password, which stores it just fine. Doesn't have software licenses. So, I guess maybe the idea that Apple has is you would store these in notes, which is an idea, but not really as good as storing it in one password. So I think that's maybe for the product managers, if they're still working on this or will ever work on this app again in true Apple fashion, is, as always, when you're looking to replace a piece of software, get the software and point at it and say, do everything that does. And there you go. And then you can replace it.
It's probably fine. I think as an 80% solution, it's going to work for, 95% of the people.
This is true. It's just like having all those other things in there, especially when like you and me, Matt Ray, you have 5 kids and you're like, you buy international tickets to fly somewhere and you're like, holy fuck, now I got to enter 5 passports. No, 7, because you have parents too, right? And like, boy, that's no fun. And it's really nice in one password where you just go copy and paste that stuff over. So
next time,
enjoy your password management. As always, This has also been an enjoyable act of password management, the password of software-defined talk. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/495, where if you listen to past episodes, you can get better ending comments than that one that I just did. I just kind of pulled that one out of nowhere. Usually when I pull it out, it's at least interesting and thinking about. But there's all sorts of things that we didn't mention, stuff that we talk about in our Slack channel. If you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com, you can find that Slack channel and join in on the conversation. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Excellent as always. Good to see everybody online. I'm getting some real-time feedback on my Mac, which is fantastic. Carl has pointed out this .tools versions thing I need to check out. So thank you, Carl. I'm going to dive into this later. Maybe for once, I'll actually have it figured out.
What does .tools do?
I don't know. I've just now read it, but he's basically saying it will basically help me keep everything up to date. So I don't know. Check in next week. Let me see if I can actually figure it out. Also saw Henning on. It's good to see him on as well. And then, of course, Michael. Always good to see him on as well. Good fun watching this. Before we go, though, here's a quick question since we talked about 1Password so much. Maybe if for those that did the reading, you will already know the answer. How much do you think 1Password is going to try to go public for? Without looking at the show notes, what would you guess the value of 1Password, the company, would be?
Like their value?
Of the whole company, of the whole thing.
It's got to be $3 billion.
Okay. Matt?
$2 billion?
Password Manager was last valued by investors at $6.8 billion.
Wow.
No.
I don't know. Of course, who knows if that's actually true. That's all from Bloomberg. So there you go. So never underestimate, because I was at IBM at one point and we were just talking about password management, and it was always like kicked around as like, oh, this is like, it's too small. It's not like enterprise. And I was like, I don't know, man. I just feel like this is a good solution. And then, so here you go. So there you go. Never underestimate solving a small problem.
It's really about the secure storage of vital information, accessible across hybrid infrastructures. And,
all right, I gotta go.
Scaling from small to medium to enterprise markets.
Yeah, good
that
luck
was
with
well
that.
done, Cote. The banking team will be contacting you to see if you can be part of the roadshow. And with that, Matt has to go. I want to thank everyone for watching us in the stream. For those that are watching right now, have a happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate it in the United States. And if you don't, I say take Thursday off anyway. I'm trying to promote it around the world. Everyone just take Thursday off.
It's a little late. Yeah.
Do your best. I guess for those in Australia, too late. But everyone else watching, you can still do it. Europeans, you still have the day ahead of you. Take it